Today is Wednesday, July 21st, 2021. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Congressional Black Caucus members and black women leaders continue to press the issue on voting rights on Capitol Hill. We'll show you today's news conference. The Poor People's Campaign announced that 56 years after the historic march from Selma to Montgomery for voting rights, they will hold a 27-mile march from Georgetown, Texas to Austin, Texas. We have those details, and Roland Martin Unfiltered will be live streaming that march next week. In Missouri, a committee there held a hearing on race and racism curriculum, didn't invite no black people. Yeah, we'll talk with the head of Missouri's NAACP. In Baltimore, activists are calling on Baltimore's state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, to drop charges against Keith Davis, a black man who faces his 5th murder trial. His wife, an attorney, will join us. And in Indiana, Terra Roling, the one white woman caught on video threatening black kids with a knife at a school playground, she's finally been charged with 2 felonies. Plus, we'll have the latest news in Haiti with Jacqueline Charles of the Miami Herald, who is the leading reporter on what's happening in Haiti and the Caribbean. Also, I gotta show y'all this video. This white flight attendant had no time for a crazy-ass white woman who did not want to wear her mask. He even told her, go fly Spirit Airlines. Delicious video. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Black women leaders are unrelenting in their demands for Congress to do something when it comes to voting rights. They want them to pass the For the People Act as well as the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. They have had a variety of actions, including last week when Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, was arrested in a protest in the Senate Hart building. Today, those same black women leaders went to Capitol Hill for a joint news conference with the Congressional Black Caucus. Our Roland Martin Unfiltered cameras were there.
I thought about the scripture, and it's really not a scripture, it's a combination, that the race isn't given to the swift nor to the strong, but to the one that endures. And as was said, we've been here before, but we ain't going back. We've been here before, but we're not going back. We see the court trying to strip away our voting rights. We see states across the country trying to strip away our voting rights. Suppression, subversion, intimidation. But not today. Not today. We are standing up as the Congressional Black Caucus in partnership and saying not today.
What can we do? What can we collectively do? Because we know that just as black women, we are the secret sauce to the black vote. We are not just a voting bloc. We carry that black vote. Congressman has always said, the one for black women. Isn't that what you said? And so we knew, so if you talk about taking the right to vote away and the power that it does for our community, then for black women, we knew we had to keep stepping up. We had to show up for Tasha and Cliff. We had to keep showing up. We had to go into the faith community, like Dr. Skidder taught us, and we're going to keep on fighting. Yes. We are not, there's no option. There's no sitting, I vote on the shelf. Marcia Johnson Blanco from the Lawyers Committee. There's no sitting. We will do whatever it takes because our ancestors did it for us. We got the roadmap.
Come on.
That's right. Come on. So we'll go to jail. That's right. We're going to back the Congressional Black Caucus. And this is an American issue. It's not just about black people. Come on. Because anytime you come for us, it come for you anyway. Yes. Those who believe that in exclusion. That's right. So when we fight this fight, we're fighting it for the American people. Yes. Because this country would not be a democracy if this stays like it is right now.
I want you all to know that as we drop H.R. 4, nothing is more important than restoring the Voting Rights Act and the full protections of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Nothing is more important. John said, yes, get into good trouble. But John also said that our struggle is not a struggle for one day, 1 week, or a lifetime. Ours is a struggle for a lifetime. A lifetime. So let us do and get into some good trouble, and let's restore the Voting Rights Act of 1960.
So I think there's something to be said for us being in this room today. And you're welcome here today. And I just want to close by saying this. You know, the last time I went to jail, the first time was when I met Emily, and that was a blessing. But the last time I went to jail, I ended up staying 3 days and 3 nights. We were supposed to be there for only a few hours. And the reason I was there 3 days and 3 nights is because the person who was supposed to be out raising the bail ended up in jail. I knew. And he couldn't raise the bail while in jail. And I often say, I learned a lesson that day, that all of us have roles to play.
There you go.
My role that day was to go to jail. But Ida Quince's role was to raise the baby. And so you all who have been agitating, you have a role that you are playing well. We here are legislating.
There you go.
And we must play our role well. You agitate, we legislate, and together we can be successful.
Folks, now 56 years after the historic march from Selma to Montgomery, the Poor People's Campaign and several voting rights organizations will embark on a 27-mile trek from Georgetown to Austin, Texas, to demand the same as those women leaders and the CBC. The purpose of the march, to put the pressure on Democrats in the United States Senate to end the filibuster and, yes, pass those 2 critical bills, in addition to raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour. They held a virtual news conference today to announce that march.
It's the march design is to nationalize the actions that are happening in state legislatures in the state of Texas and in others, to say very clearly, as Selma to Montgomery said in '65, we must have federal action. And we are calling on the United States Senate and the President to act by August the 6th, the anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act. And we demand that Congress act now to stop the attacks on democracy. How? By ending the filibuster, not just carving it out, ending it. Number 2, passing all provisions of the For the People Act. Number 3, fully restoring the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And number 4, raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And even in this time, lastly, we want to permanent protections and dignity and respect for all of our undocumented immigrants, especially our DACA brothers and sisters. This march and this gathering is to connect the dots. The purpose is to say that the same forces of regression and greed that seek to suppress the vote in Texas and all over the country, and especially in the South, those same forces are suppressing passing $15 a living wage, suppressing addressing poverty, suppressing health care, suppressing climate issues, suppressing just immigration reform, and suppressing utility needs. We are coming this march to say this is not Jim Crow pure. This is James Crow Esquire. Because when you look at what these bills are doing, especially in Texas, it will hurt Black people and brown people and white people and Asian people and Native people and poor and low wealth people and women and the differently able and young people. And we must connect the dots in this moment and have a moral fusion response.
Bishop Barber, I'm happy to, and I want to thank you and the Poor People's Campaign for your focus on Texas, because this is the epicenter in the fight for the right to vote. We have the toughest voting and election laws in the country, bar none. It is tougher to vote in Texas than it is in any other state. And as every other speaker has said, That is connected to the fact that our minimum wage in Texas is $7.25 an hour. It's connected to the fact that we are the least insured state in the country. It's connected to the fact that we are on the front lines of climate change. We listened to a speaker who grew up next to the Houston Ship Channel. Those communities are bearing the brunt of our inaction and our excesses and our lack of political participation, especially by those who are impacted the greatest. But beyond producing the most restrictive voting laws, Bishop, Texas has also produced everyone that we just listened to on this call. And they're the ones that give me hope, that make me know that we will pass the For the People Act. Texas is produced the state legislators who are in D.C. right now, breaking a quorum to stop suppression at home and providing the moral leverage on the United States Senate and our president, who must do more to ensure that we have voting rights passed this summer. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing and tell you that I proudly stand with you, and I'm looking forward to joining you.
There will be more direct action taking place in the nation's capital on tomorrow, and Roland Martin Unfiltered will be broadcasting those events. In addition to what you just heard there, we will be in Austin, Texas, beginning next Tuesday, and we'll be broadcasting every single day the march from Georgetown to Austin, Texas, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, culminating in a mass event taking place at the Texas State Capitol on Saturday, and we will be broadcasting live there as well. Joining us right now is our panel: A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association Political Action Committee; Robert Portillo, executive director, Rainbow Push Coalition, Peachtree Street Project; also Monique Presley, legal analyst and crisis manager. Glad to have all three of you on today's show. Robert, it was Georgia that got all of this kicked off with the bill Republicans passed there. Then, of course, it went to Florida and Iowa and other states. Republicans are moving on the state level. And now Texas is the ground zero for the fight against voting rights. At the end of the day, this boils down to two people. Senators Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. I do want to show you something that I found to be real interesting. I saw this yesterday. There was a poll that was done by CBS, I believe, and the poll was with regards to voters in Arizona. And if you're Senator Kristen Sinema, you might want to pay attention to these polling numbers. I'm looking for the tweet right now. But basically, 66% of folks in Arizona, Democrats in Arizona, say they will not be in support of Kristen Sinema. They will want somebody to run against her for the Democratic primary in 2024 based upon her unwillingness to end the filibuster. I'm gonna find this the actual data point in just a second, but that says a heck of a whole lot. So if you're somebody who keeps saying that you're yelling bipartisanship, and I represent my constituents, you might want to pay careful attention to that poll, because people clearly understand what it means. Actually, here it is right here. Only 22% of Arizona Democratic primary voters said they would support Sinema's re-election in 2024 if she maintains her hardline stance on the filibuster. That, Robert, is why the pressure in the states matters, because Sinema, she hears that. Manchin, he hears from West Virginia. That factors into the equation.
You're absolutely correct, Roland. I think that's what we have seen from the Republican side of the aisle is the way that Donald Trump was able to get unanimity within the caucus is by supporting primary challengers and then unseating people. We saw what happened to Jeff Flake. We saw what happened to Corker. We saw what happened to many other Republicans who stood up against Trump in the first year or two of his administration, not being able to survive a direct assault by a president. Right now, we're seeing in Georgia, Donald Trump is involved in the lieutenant governor's race. The Republican primary for lieutenant governor. Donald Trump is involved in that race. Why? Because he wants to ensure that he has unanimity within the Republican Party, that he continues to be the leader of the party in every way, shape, or form. And Democrats have to get on board and understand you have to do that within your own caucus. So we should be working on primary challenges for Sinema. We should be working on primary challenges against Joe Manchin, because even if they are not successful in their primary challenges, they put the pressure on them to stand with the remainder of the Democratic caucus. We cannot continue to win elections only to govern from the minority. I saw Bishop Tavis Grant, who was on the Rainbow Push National Field Director, who was on the call earlier with Reverend Barber and the others. We should not have to march from Texas to Washington, D.C. while in the majority in the Congress and in the Senate and in the White House. We should not have to continue to fight against ourselves while we are in control, because young people get the idea, well, what's the purpose? What was the point of turning out in November 2020? What was the point of turning out in January 2021 that we're still going to be in the same position? So Democrats are going to have to start using the bully pulpit, get those whips together, bring the caucus in line, and start passing meaningful legislation, and stop letting Mitch McConnell still operate as Prime Minister of the United States of America.
In this piece, Monique, this is what The Hill wrote. 50% of respondents said they approve of Arizona Senator Mark Kelly's job performance, while just as many said they approve of Biden's. The Data for Progress poll found, by comparison, just 44% gave Sinema's performance thumbs up. Only among Republican voters did Sinema score better approval marks than Biden or Kelly. Republicans have sought to hammer Democrats on their push for filibuster reform. But the bottom line there is Republicans are loving her. That should tell you a lot, that if Republicans are giving you greater approval numbers than President Biden or Senator Mark Kelly in your state, that means you may not be doing something right when it comes to your party. So you might want to be paying attention.
I got a song for her. Here it goes. You about to lose your job. Instagram celebrities, look it up. Y'all should know that song by now. She needs to handle her business. Either she's a Democrat or she's not. What I don't respect about her position is she won't even bother to explain it. You know, she's treating her own constituents and the greater constituency in the United States as if we're all just low morons, and she's on some political, moral, intellectual high ground where she doesn't have to explain herself and just say some gibberish about bipartisanship and keep it moving. No, ma'am. No, ma'am, you are not reading the room. You're not reading the tea leaves. You need to go see somebody, Miss Sophie, somebody in a room somewhere, get your palm read so you can understand that you are the one putting yourself in jeopardy, because this train is going to keep on moving, and either you're going to be on it or you're going to be under it. It's up to you.
And look,
didn't y'all miss me?
I mean,
I did. You give us our pop culture references, so yes.
And that song, too.
Y'all done?
Oh, sorry. It's your show. Well, we ready today. What's the next question, Roland? It sounds like you missed us.
I did. I hated being away and having to actually work hard for the money. But I'm back now, so I'm making my presence felt.
Good, good. How's your
Carry
family?
on, Roland. Go ahead.
Yeah, how's your
Everyone's well.
family?
Thank you, Scott.
Monique?
How was yours?
Good, real good. Erica misses
And you,
you.
Robert? I miss her terribly.
You know what? Since y'all want to play family reunion catch up, Vice President Kamala Harris had a conversation with poll workers and election officials. Why don't we just go ahead and play that, and y'all can talk to each other offline. Go.
I want to thank you all for joining us here today, virtually and in person. I've asked that you would join us, and I'm honored to have the White House counsel, Dana Remus, here, to have a very candid and frank discussion about the work, the responsibility, the commitment, and the challenges of what it means to be the people who on the ground are upholding some of the most important tenets of our democracy, which is the work that you do and that your colleagues do every day, especially in election season, but all the days leading up to it, to ensure all Americans have an easy and accessible and available opportunity to exercise their right to vote. So I've asked you all to be here to have that conversation and to also to share with me in this environment, meaning in an environment where you are invited to talk about the challenges so that we can uplift your voices as we work on this issue, which is, I believe, as American as apple pie, the right to defend the American people's right to vote. And I'll tell you, I love voting. And when I have voted in person and walk into, and I voted in an elementary school, the neighborhood elementary school, church, the neighborhood senior center, and walking into the polling site, and there the poll workers greet you with a smile, come on in, and show you where the machines are, and as technology has changed, help you figure out how to use the machine, give you a sticker after. It reminds me of just, what we do to just honor what people do to exercise their civic duty. Those are poll workers, and I think most Americans experience with poll workers. You're the people who make elections happen. And why do poll workers do that work? Well, I know enough to know, and I've talked to enough poll workers, and I've seen the surveys. There are pretty much three basic reasons that poll workers do their work. Because they want to ensure that our elections process goes as it should. Poll workers do their work because they want to serve their community, and because they enjoy being active in their community. And poll workers come in every stripe. They are of every political party, of every age, ethnicity, gender, but believe in the importance of that process to our country. And I strongly believe, therefore, we dare not take the work of poll workers for granted. And I think we do. But the work of poll workers, unencumbered, without intimidation, without threats, should be a commitment that we all have, not only to them who serve, but to our democracy. And sadly, what we know is that the two components of the right to vote, one to cast your ballot and the other to make sure your ballot is counted, are under threat right now. We saw that poll workers, it talked about leading up to the 2020 election, the most recent big national election, began to receive threats, forcing some to have to work around the clock, getting protection, around-the-clock protection. Others were threatened and were afraid to go back to their homes because they were actually threatened to such an extent that they felt unsafe to be in their personal homes. And many of these threats came from folks who were, as we turned out, unhappy with the outcome of the election. And however, what we do know, and it is an undisputed fact by those who know and are informed and possess the facts, that the 2020 election was administered under the highest standards, nonpartisan standards. So what we want to do today is have a discussion about how we can ensure, as we go forward, that the American people have a fair, a transparent, accessible opportunity to exercise their voice through their vote. And as it relates to the work of our administration, we are very proud that we are really treating this with one of our highest levels of priority. Anything from what the DOJ is doing over there around a task force to protect election officials and poll workers. 4 months ago, our administration and the president issued orders that include the order to increase voter access, including encouraging people to become nonpartisan poll workers. And we are working to stop anti-voter legislation in the various states. We are forcefully working to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and working to help ensure that all Americans know what they get when they vote, to further encourage them to vote knowing that it will make a difference in their lives. So today, I look forward to our conversation. Again, I want to thank each of you. You represent thousands of people who live in all of our communities, regardless of how we voted in the last election or may vote in the next election, who really are the best of civic participants and patriots. So thank you all for your work, and I look forward to our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. Any reaction to House Speaker Pelosi's decision to reject Banks and Representative Jordan from the January 6th Commission?
I mean, listen, I absolutely respect Speaker Pelosi and her ability to lead, and there is, and support that. And there is no question in my mind, or I think most people's minds, that the American people deserve to have a thorough, a full, fair, and transparent process of getting down to what happened on January 6th, how it occurred, who was responsible, so that we can make sure that history does not repeat itself. That is in the best interest of all Americans.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, Scott, that was Vice President Kamala Harris, obviously speaking on this issue. We heard from the black women a little bit earlier. I mean, look, they want something to be done. They want action to be taken. And what you're seeing is the effort for sustained pressure on congressional leaders to do something.
Yeah, but you know, I was going to go there too. The sustained pressure on congressional leaders, that pressure on Republican leaders isn't going to change. And so the real pressure...
Well, first of all, ain't nobody paying attention to them at all because we know where they stand. The bottom line is the pressure's on the Democrats to end the filibuster to pass these two bills.
But in laser-like fashion, I understand the outside pressure, fully support it. But in the end, it's going to come down to Biden and Manchin and Sinema. And so my question for Biden and the administration is, what is he doing to put pressure on them to act like Democrats versus Republicans? I'll say it again, because no matter how much we march, no matter how much we protest, no matter how much you and I and others on this program talk about it, right? The Republicans aren't changing because they can hold their people in line, but the Democrats aren't holding Sinema and Manchin to the Democratic standard and making them part of the Democratic Party side of the Democrats. And so until we hear more from the Biden administration about what they're doing, then we can cover this in the media, we can march, we can do whatever needs to be done to express ourselves to support this Voting Rights Act and this People Act. But the bottom line is nothing. I mean, nothing is going to change on this until Biden can deal with Manchin and Sinema and make them do what they should do as Democrats. And then I'll leave you with this thought. Last thought I had real quick is, you know, if what we know about Sinema's constituents is that only 22% of them support her if she doesn't change her position on the filibuster, and Manchin doesn't have a whole lot of black folks in West Virginia, then what are the Republicans doing to keep them where they are? Because this isn't some moral ground they have or some commitment to democracy. It's just the opposite. So what is driving, really, what is driving their position on this filibuster piece?
Power. That is they hold significant sway over the legislative agenda. Yeah. That's what it is. I mean, this is not, Robert, this ain't hard. This is what happens when you have a 50-50 tie where one senator can make or break any decision.
But that's good for them. That's not good for America. You would agree with that, right?
Duh.
Well, and Scott, kind of to your point, this is why I think that we have to have our president or vice president speaking more forcefully on the issue. That was a wonderful presentation by Vice President Harris, but we have to start talking in a way that the majority of the American people communicate and understand. One of the benefits that Donald Trump has always had is he communicates on right about a 6th or 7th grade level. so that his voters, his constituents, know exactly what they're talking about going forward. So when he simply says election stolen, voter fraud, we're doing something about it. It's not a 15, 20-minute speech going to the minutia of electoral politics. And I think that you have to speak in that way to get the coalition needed behind you to pass big legislation of this nature. Because what we're seeing right now is Republicans have been able to successfully shift the entire conversation. So instead of talking about voting rights, instead of talking about many of these important issues, they are able to control the conversation. As long as they are able to control that conversation, it's hard to get anything besides black folks on board behind this. And as we've seen, our white compatriots very often do not care about these issues the way that we do because they do not directly impact them the same way that we do. So we have to get the language and the talking points down and make sure that the media is correctly reporting them so we can build the type of coalition that's needed to get these big bills passed.
It's going to boil down to pressure, and so we're going to continue to cover this. As I said, after today's show, we will restream the Congressional Black Caucus News Conference with Black women leaders, as well as we'll restream the Poor People's Campaign News Conference announcing next week's march as well. Now let's go to Missouri, where I'm confused. A Missouri Legislative Committee, they held a hearing, y'all, on race and racism curriculum, but they ain't invite no black people. Many white parents, teachers, and scholars testified at the invite-only Joint Committee on Education hearing, most of them criticizing critical race theory. You know, the thing that's not being taught in Missouri schools. Now, the committee leader, GOP Senator Cindy O'Loughlin, says the purpose of the hearing was to highlight voices of parents against critical race theory that claims school officials have ignored their complaints. O'Loughlin also says she invited an associate professor of teaching specializing in black history, but he declined to testify. Ooh, she invited one black person. Now, folks, well, first of all, it's not clear if that professor actually was black. Missouri NAACP President Rod Chappelle joins us right now on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Glad to have you on the show. So, was the hearing about critical race theory? Again, that's not being taught in Missouri schools. It's all a BS lie. But if you're going to have a conversation on race and curriculum, yeah, you might want to invite some black folks, especially with Missouri's racist history in the United States.
That's right. That's right. You couldn't be more right. What we were supposed to be doing was having a hearing where we were at least going to be able to partake in an informational session. That's what they told everybody. As president of the NAACP, I have often and many times, even as a trial lawyer, been in front of these committees trying to offer testimony to enlighten the committee. Here we have a joint committee, and it came out during the committee that these people who were testifying weren't the experts that we were told that they were. That was a justification for not allowing real Missouri citizens to be able to testify of or against critical race theory. Instead, these are people who were hand-selected by the chair of the committee. That's not how these hearings are supposed to go.
What we keep showing is how these crazy, deranged white conservatives are when it comes to trumping up critical race theory. And then they got all these equally ignorant and clueless white conservative followers who fall for the okie doke. And yes, they have a few loony black people mixed in there. And they're just going on and on about critical race theory as if it's this major issue, and it's not. And so this is why they deserve to be called out for sheer stupidity.
That's right. That's right. And in Missouri, it's a part of a continuing narrative where they intend to silence anyone who has an opposing viewpoint. You know, there's a law that they tried to pass where if you were driving if you were a protester or an advocate and you happened to be in the street, someone could run you over and not suffer any criminal liability. They had another one where if you say the name of a police officer, allegedly doxing them by identifying them by their, family given name, that you could be charged with a felony and prosecuted in a county that you never even set foot in. And then there you have this hearing where taxpayers came from a long way and the room was packed. We had moms, we had dads, we had professionals, we had people who just cared about the issue of education, who came to testify and let their voice be heard to this committee, and they were silenced too. That's what's happening in Missouri. Jim Crow is intended to be the rule of the day, and that's why the Missouri Travel Advisory for the NAACP is still in effect.
So I take it her position just pretty much was, oh, this is really just no big deal. Y'all pipe down. And also she invited one person. Wow, that was it?
Right. And now my understanding of that one-person invite was that they invited this professor who does have a full-time job on Friday at best. Nobody could ever pin down how that invitation was delivered or what time, but it was alluded to from among the committee members that it happened on Friday. And then the other thing that really just blew my mind is that she said, well, you know, we're going to have another committee hearing on this, right? Wait, so you call an informational session that's not really informational at all, and then you deny people the right to speak, and then when people who were in the gallery there watching this committee process just can't believe that this is happening, and they're commenting to themselves, not loudly, they were literally shushed by the committee, told to be quiet.
Well, we see craziness is happening all across the country. Keep up the fight, and then we'll see what happens next there in the Show Me State with Republicans who control the legislature. Missouri NAACP President Rod Chappelle, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, y'all. I got like a whole bunch of these, so we're going to do 2 of these today. Y'all know what time it is.
No charcoal grills are allowed.
I'm white. I got you, bro.
Illegally selling water without a permit
On my property.
Whoa! Hey!
Give us your right.
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
So imagine being in a city council meeting in Alabama and this happens.
The N-word.
I mean, I know I'm black.
Do we have a house nigger in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we? Hey, do we? Would she please stand up?
Y'all are seeing this, right? Cameras?
Okay, that was a city council meeting. Yeah. Some of y'all may have missed that. Roll it again.
The N-word.
I mean, I know I'm black.
You want to address what I have to say?
Do we have a house nigger in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we? Hey, do we? Would she please stand up?
Y'all are seeing this, right? Cameras?
Okay, so this was Tarrant, Alabama City Council member Tommy Bryant asking that question. That's Tommy right there. And he was speaking to Councilwoman, or the direction of Councilwoman Veronica Freeman. Folks there are shocked. Freeman is shocked as well. He later, I'm reading this, this is from Newsweek, I'm reading this. Bryant, let me try to close these ads out so y'all can see. Bryant later defended his use of the term in an interview with WVTM, claiming he was only repeating the words Tarrant City's Black Mayor, Wayman Newton, had previously used in reference to Freeman. According to the councilman, Newton described Freeman using the phrase along with the prefix stupid in an executive session earlier that day. I thought that the city ought to know what sort of terminology the mayor uses, and I didn't want him to get away with it, so that's the reason I used that comment. We need to stop the racial slurs that the mayor makes. He's always picking on Veronica Freeman. The mayor bullies her. The city needs to know what kind of mayor and what kind of vocabulary he has. So now Tommy is defending the black councilwoman. You buying that one, Monique?
No. Should I?
his quote, "I did what needed to be done," Scott.
Well, who made him the parliamentarian and the ability to use the N-word, to be free to use the N-word in a public setting like that? It's interesting, his level of comfortability using it in a public setting and the acceptance of his words and phrases in that public setting. While people were offended, right, no one got up and walked out. No one physically or verbally assaulted him in response. And so you still have parts of this country, especially in the South, where the acceptability of using that N-word and that term just seems to be offensive, yes, but not something you want to take a stand on. It's not a fighting word in some parts of our country. And that's not only sad and disappointing, but it's really racist, right? And that Black people who are the subject of that term feel powerless in how to respond to it, whether it's intellectual response or whether it's a physical or a social response, that in a public setting with the American flag there, that they're using this term. And then lastly, what are the repercussions of him using that term? He explains it away in some intellectual fashion as if it was race neutral in using his term, but there's no censure, there's no suspension, there's no expulsion for him using that word. And so essentially, that community is living with the acceptability of that council member until you vote him out. It's sad, but it's true.
Robert, Alabama, I'm reading again from Newsweek, Alabama Republican Party Chairman John Wall branded the remarks, quote, completely unacceptable in any setting, but stopped short of calling for Bryant to resign. But here's the other deal. The Black mayor he's talking about is a member of the Jefferson County Republican Party. and the white guy who just said it, he says, I ain't stepping down. He says, I might run for mayor.
Yeah, I think in big chunks of this country, folks don't understand what the Deep South is still like. Particularly, I think people watch Real Housewives and they watch Love and Hip Hop, and they think that Atlanta is the rest of the South. No, as soon as you cross 285, you're going straight back into Mississippi burning. And this council person is correct in what he is saying, in that he knows there will be absolutely no political repercussions for what he said. That might be his campaign slogan when he runs for mayor, and it might get him elected. This is why it's so important that we push voting rights on a national level, because throughout the South, you're looking at Georgia's 35% Black, South Carolina's almost 40% Black, Alabama is, I think, 33% Black, and yet they still do not have the political power to control their own local elected officials because the right to vote has been so thoroughly curtailed within those jurisdictions. So this does not tell you the need to pass a national voting rights act. The fact that an elected official can say the N-word in open session on video and know there'll be no repercussion, then I don't know what better case there is to push the 40 people at them for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
And Lord have mercy, I keep telling y'all these folk are losing their minds. And he lucky he didn't get popped right there in the meeting.
Exactly.
All right. Got to go to break. We come back. We're going to discuss a case out of Maryland where people are calling on State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby not to pursue a fifth trial for Keith Davis. We'll give you those details when we come back. And, of course, we have another crazy-ass white person. Remember the white woman in Indiana who chased those black kids? She in trouble with the law. We'll break it down for you next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I believe that people our age have lost the ability to focus the discipline on the art of organizing.
The challenges, there's so many of them and they're complex, and we need to be moving to address them. But I'm able to say, watch out, Tiffany. I know this road.
That is so freaking dope.
Hello, I'm Nina Turner. My grandmother used to say, all you need in life are 3 bones. The wishbone to keep you dreaming, the jawbone to help you speak truth to power, and the backbone to keep you standing through it all. I'm running for Congress because you deserve a leader who will stand up fearlessly on your behalf. Together, we will deliver Medicare for all. Good jobs that pay a living wage, and bold justice reform. I'm Nina Turner, and I approve this message.
What would you say to a young person who says, look, I'm trying to change our society, I'm trying to change this world. Man, I ain't got time for this church stuff. I just don't think y'all legit.
Oh, man. I would say just because you see an artist in music that you don't like, do you stop listening to hip hop? No, it's like ridiculous. You see one artist do something that is what their choice was, has nothing to do with the whole industry or the whole art form of hip hop. You don't throw out hip hop. So the same way, if you see an artist that you don't like do that, I would ask you, don't do the same thing with the church. Because just because you see one minister, one man or woman do something that you don't agree with, don't use that as an excuse to demonize an institution that could actually help save your life. You know, I am who I am because I was raised in the church. You know, all the things that I'm able to do in the world are directly related to being brought up in a healthy church environment where I learned how to develop my gifts. I learned how to communicate. I learned how to deal with other people. I learned how to lead. All of those things that help me and other people become successful in society, you can learn in the church. So I would say to somebody that's young, I would challenge them. Everything that's in you, if you're trying to get it out, get into a good church, because that church will be a fantastic incubator for all the gifts that are in you. And when you find the right church, you will find that the others that you may have been looking at were the wrong people to look at. In any profession, I don't care what it is, you're always going to find people that you can point out that may not represent that profession to the best of their ability. But when you find those that do, then you begin to see what it really is about.
I'm Shantae Moore.
Hi, I'm BB Winans.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
In Maryland, activists are calling on Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby to drop charges against a black man who was facing his 5th murder trial for the homicide of a security guard. In 2015, officers approached Keith Davis. They mistook him for a robbery suspect. The officers also believed his phone was a handgun. They demanded Davis drop the phone and begin shooting. He was shot more than 40 times. A jury acquitted Davis of the robbery accusation, but convicted him of possessing a gun. Critics of Davis's trial called the evidence unreliable and flimsy. At a news conference regarding a different incident, a reporter asked Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby about the Keith Davis case.
I'm not here on the Keith Davis trial. The one thing I can say about that matter is that I'm going to fight for victims of crime in the city of Baltimore. That is my job, that is my role, that is my responsibility. And my concern in that case is Kevin Jones.
Now, joining me right now is Kelly Davis, the wife of Keith Davis, and his attorney, Latoya Francis Williams. Glad to have both of you on the show. I want to start with you, Latoya. So walk people through exactly how we got to this point. So he was holding a phone, but he was convicted of possessing a gun. Were fingerprints found? Did he have a gun? Was one planted? And how is this now a 5th trial?
Right. Well, the long and short of it should not be a 5th trial. Mr. Davis never held, never had, never possessed a gun. Mr. Davis was actually acquitted of what we call wear, carry, and transport. However, there was a handgun, the state's version, located in the mechanic's garage on top of a refrigerator. And so in the state of Maryland, one could be convicted of constructive possession, meaning possibly if the handgun is within your lunge, reach, and grasp, and there's an allegation that you could have known of it and exercised control, that is considered to be possession. So while the jury acquitted Mr. Davis of actually possessing and all the other counts in the robbery trial, that is the linchpin. That is what the state's attorney's office has hung their hat on.
All right, so at the initial trial, okay, so then there was a second one. When was that? And then when was the third one? And then when was the fourth one? And now, go ahead.
So here we are. I mean, to keep it brief, I should say, the robbery trial took place first. When Mr. Davis was acquitted of all the charges that one could think of, he was charged with robbery, assault first degree, wear, carry, transport, a host of charges alleging that he tried to rob what we call a hack in Baltimore, an unlawful taxi. The allegation was also that he attempted or did shoot at law enforcement. Despite the state's version of what happened, saying that that handgun was never fired, those charges hung out there until the first day of trial, and the one count of discharge of a firearm was dismissed by the state. So after he was acquitted of all those counts in the robbery trial, the state then brought the first murder trial. The murder charge was based on the allegation that the handgun that is alleged to have been recovered, that's still up for debate, because the only officers in that mechanics garage were the shooting officers. And as we all know at this point, at least one of the shooting officers was under federal investigation for trafficking drugs from Philadelphia to Baltimore. So as we all know, the difficulty in Baltimore and the credibility of the Baltimore Police Department, the version of the officers is that one of them discovered a handgun on top of the refrigerator itself. The handgun is alleged to have been associated with the killing of Kevin Jones earlier that morning at the Pimlico racetrack. So that's supposed to be the tie-in. But nevertheless, as the trials have gone on, the state's own witnesses have testified in favor of Mr. Davis, identifying that that handgun has no evidence of gunshot residue, no evidence of being fired that day, that the shell casings that were tested according to the firearms examiner of Baltimore City, their own expert witness, identified that while he called the shell casings from the homicide scene to the handgun itself a match, he ended up admitting on cross-examination that he just simply eyeballed the shell casings. He actually took no notes. He did nothing according to protocol, and that is what the state is hanging their hat on. You know, it's unfortunate that it's so convoluted, but Mr. Davis has certainly been dragged through the dirt since 2015, and it's certainly been our position as both a criminal defense attorney and a plaintiff's attorney, civil rights attorney, that Mr. Davis has become the butt of this persecution because he survived the police-involved shooting. There's no question that what has been made available to the public is Mr. Davis was the first person shot in Baltimore City by police since Freddie Gray. And that has been the plight of Mr. Davis. He's been fighting since June of 2015 for his liberty and his life. So to kind of keep it brief, Mr. Davis was convicted of second-degree murder that was overturned. The other trials ended either in a hung jury or an overturned conviction. So we have 4 in total in terms of the homicide, and in terms of the robbery, as I just explained. It's been a whirlwind. And unfortunately, we are still where we are today because the state's attorney for Baltimore City refuses to put her eyes on the actual evidence. So, you know, we're here. We certainly appreciate you listening and the nation listening to the plight of Mr. Davis.
So has a 5th trial date been set?
A 5th trial date has been set. If I'm not mistaken, are we in May of 2022? Ms. Davis, I know, is on the line. I believe it's set for May of 2022. I could be standing corrected. She can correct me if I'm wrong on the exact date.
Kelly, what about that? Kelly, you're on mute. I think now we got you. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. May 16th, 2022 will be his next trial date.
So he was shot more than 40 times. How is his health? Is he still impacted by that many bullets?
Mr.
Yes,
Martin,
sir.
he was shot at.
He was shot at 40 times. Kelly, how many times was he hit?
He was hit 3 times, once in his arm, his back, and a bullet that went through his face and lodged into his neck.
How is he now?
He still suffers tremendously. He was a completely healthy 23-year-old when he went in, and now we've had to fight the corrections facility multiple times a year just to get him adequate medical attention. When the bullet went through his face, it severed his sinus cavity, so he now has issues breathing. He has just as much titanium on one side of his face as he does bone on the other, as well as he still has fragments in his neck and his ear and that are close to his spine that were unable to be removed.
How long has he been in? How much longer does he have to go?
Time-wise. In prison?
Yeah, in terms of walk folks through because first of all, walk folks through his process. First of all, because you say we were fighting the corrections folks when it comes to his treatment. Explain that.
So, of course, when you're in prison, it's inadequate medical care. He's not getting what he's needed. We have to fight in order for him to get medicine, like prednisone, just to be able to breathe. We have to fight for him to be seen by a doctor. When you're in prison, your medical care and your well-being is the least of their worries. So that's what we've had to fight. And he's been incarcerated since they shot him. So they shot him on June 7th, 2015. He's been in their custody since. We've had to fight multiple times. He's had a bullet removed out of his neck in 2017. We had to fight to have that removed. He's had breathing issues. He just recently, this past year, I had to rally the public together to call into the correctional facility as I received a call saying that he was on a ventilator and I needed to sign for a procedure. He was on a ventilator. He had to have a blood transfusion. He was bleeding out and they didn't know where. And even still to this day, he still is not receiving the medical care that he needs for that incident as well.
I'm trying to understand here, LaToya. So his conviction was overturned in 2019, but he's still in prison?
That is correct. It sounds convoluted and crazy because it is. As we stand here today, Mr. Davis has served the entirety of any sentence that he should and could have served. And we're dating back to the robbery trial, the constructive possession conviction. He has served that sentence. He is literally sitting pre-trial at this point. His new criminal defense team has lobbied for bail reconsideration, habeas petitions on behalf of Mr. Davis, not just for his medical conditions, but he's innocent until and unless proven guilty. But this man is actually an innocent man. The state's attorney's office has been able to lodge charges against him and use the allegations themselves as the reason to hold him pre-trial. Now, the very frustrating portion is this. I ask anyone that has followed any of the trials to look at the testimony from the state's attorney's office's witnesses. Every allegation against Mr. Davis is refuted by their own witnesses. Location. There's an allegation that Mr. Davis was at Pimlico Racetrack and shot Kevin Jones. That's the allegation. The state's own expert witness said, actually, we can't place Mr. Davis at Pimlico Racetrack. Handgun. The state's allegation is that Mr. Davis had wielded, carried, touched, shot this handgun. Hammerly pistol. Their own firearms examiner expert said that there is no evidence that this handgun was actually fired on this day in question, that there is no evidence that there's any gunshot residue. And the biggest and most important concession by the state's witness is that there was actually never an assessment done with the shell casings from the Pimlico Racetrack to this gun that's alleged to have been found on the top of a refrigerator in the mechanics garage that Mr. Davis took cover in when the police started shooting. Everything from DNA to fingerprints, the state's own witness testified that there is no evidence of Keith Davis on Kevin Jones, and there's no evidence, DNA evidence, of Kevin Jones on Keith Davis. If we were to go through bit by bit the allegations against Keith Davis and simply take the sworn testimony from their witnesses throughout these many trials, you will find that every one of the allegations has been shot down by the state's attorney's office. So where do we find ourselves? We're wondering what next. If your own witnesses have refuted your rendition of what happened on June 7 of 2015, the only result right now should be to drop the charges.
So, Kelly, after his conviction was overturned, he was then charged by prosecutors with stabbing an inmate?
Yes, sir. Keith, his conviction was overturned. There was an incident that had took involving his case, and myself and my family thought we could breathe a little bit easier because this conviction was overturned, and we left town to go celebrate Memorial Day. And as soon as we got to the hotel, we got a call from his lawyer saying that he was being charged for a fight that happened inside of the prison that was a year old. So it was a case, an incident that happened with him, and the prosecutor's office reviewed that information and decided at that time, the incident, that it was nothing, that it was just an incident that happened in there. And then a year later, Marilyn Mosby and a new prosecutor, Marilyn Mosby's office, has now filed charges for that year-old fight.
So that means, LaToya, he's facing a retrial on an event in 2015,
Correct.
but could be facing a second trial over this attempted murder in prison.
And let's be very clear, you are correct in that analysis. The state has decided now, more than a year after the alleged fight took place, and I've got to tread lightly in terms of talking about that. We do believe that there's video evidence that, again, exonerates Mr. Davis. What's troubling is this. The state's attorney's office has made clear the only reason they brought these, quote, attempted murder charges now against Mr. Davis was to ensure that he stays in jail pre-trial. They were nervous that the court would assess the weight of the state's case in the murder trial and let him go home pre-trial. So this was their way to really anchor him down. If this is not malicious prosecution, I don't know what it is. What we do know at this point is that an assistant state's attorney, back when Mr. Davis was attacked last year, analyzed the information last year and decided that it was not worthy of bringing criminal charges against Mr. Davis for whatever reason. Either they didn't believe he was an instigator, either they believed that the evidence didn't support any charges, much less an attempted murder charge. The local reporting at this point on that second case was that there, in fact, was no knife found. And it's my understanding at this point is witnesses have been contacted, and those witnesses find this charge against Mr. Davis laughable, quote unquote laughable. So again, we implore the state's attorney for Baltimore City to do the right thing, not continue this persecution against Mr. Davis, and saddling him with other charges won't right these wrongs, I should say, excuse me. It doesn't, as we said before, it doesn't change the facts of June of 2015, that Mr. Davis is in fact a victim, not just of government overreach, but Mr. Davis is a victim of police misconduct, and Mr. Davis is a victim of prosecutorial misconduct.
Okay, it's a whole lot to unpack there, and we certainly thank both of you, LaToya as well as Kelly, for providing us this perspective. And we've reached out to the office of Marilyn Mosby to get a comment, and we hope to get one beyond that comment that we played just on the show. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks. Got to go to a break. We come back, more Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Racism. You talk about awakening America. It led to a historic summer of protest.
I hope our younger generation don't ever forget that nonviolence is soul force.
Priceless.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.
For Black Americans,
Right.
because of slavery, because of the complete destroying of a past, there really is no direct connection to various African countries.
Right.
But the reality is for Latinos, and even if you use that phrase, first of all, I'm from Texas. So in Texas, Hispanics is used. Other parts of the country, they say, no, call me Latino. Other folks, call me Chicano. And so you also sort of have that going on. But there's a connection with country as well.
Right.
And so if you're from Mexico, if you're from Colombia, if you're from any other particular country, it's, yeah, I'm here, but I'm also from there. As opposed to, no. This is my country.
This is
I'm involved in everything here. I think that's also something that's also at play.
It is at play, and it's unfortunate because it happens even when we're not talking about politics. I think that Latinos, the word, it's very divided because we all have this allegiance to this other place that we came from. But I believe that that's not helping us. That's not unifying the country. We need to come together and understand that this is where you're raising your kids. This is where you're paying taxes. This is where you're living. This is your country. This is where it matters.
Hello, everyone. It's Kiara Sheard.
Hey, I'm Taj. I'm Coco.
And I'm Lily.
And we're SWV.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, in Indiana, the white woman caught on video allegedly threatening Black kids with a knife at a Fort Wayne school playground faces 2 felony charges. 32-year-old Terra Roling is charged with felony intimidation in a case, opened by Allen County prosecutors on Tuesday. You might remember when we rolled this video in May, a cell phone video caught Roling threatening a boy while holding a knife. In the now viral video, she runs toward the boy and other kids that were with him. Roling was at the Weiser Park Elementary School playground with her children when her 13-year-old son said another child was physically abusing him and another boy. The social media campaign launch calling for her arrest clearly has worked. This was one of those, again, Robert, we keep seeing these stories of folks accosting Black kids. They can't sell no lemonade. They can't ride their bicycles. I mean, we got these vigilantes running around just losing their damn mind.
Well, this is what the popular media has been putting out there. We've had the over-criminalization of African Americans in media for the last century and a half, and quite frankly, from the beginning of cinema and media in this country, there's been the over-criminalization of African Americans. Also, there's the sociological concept of age overestimation, where white people generally, when they see an African American child, they don't see them as being an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old. They see a 20-year-old Black man holding a weapon for some reason, just subconsciously, which gives them the justification and the casus belli to be able to attack them in this nature. I think it's important that this woman was charged with felony charges because it's very clearly a felony on video. But I think we have to move to a point in this nation where you do no longer need to have videographic evidence in order for someone to be charged. We can't just depend on every Black boy to walk around with a drone over his head 24 hours a day in case they get accosted in order to be believed. So we have to start working on criminal justice reform where we are truly treated equally within the law. And I think people of this nature need to be brought out. They need to be made a public spectacle of, and they need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law so that these folks can learn you cannot simply attack somebody and claim that their Blackness is the weapon that they were holding to justify your attack.
Monique, just like the crazy fool in New Jersey, jumping in a Black man's face, cussing him out, threatening to physically harm him. Now his ass got arrested. And that's what needs to happen. These people who are intimidating, verbally harassing Black folks for just being Black, they need to be prosecuted.
They have to be prosecuted, and it's not like send a message because that's not something that we say in law, but discipline is a form of deterrence. So it has to be known that you're not going to be able to just do this with reckless disregard and get away with it. This is not open season. It is not. And so we need for all of the departments across the United States to be very clear about the fact that you're not going to get passes for this. You don't get a wink and a smile the first time you commit this type of targeted harassment.
Scott, we've shown a lot of these videos, and again, for black folks just being black, trying to deliver packages, trying to walk a dog. A black woman was driving too slow in a neighborhood. I mean, there is this constant harassment of black folks just being.
Yeah, and you know what it is? It's white privilege run amok. White privilege is getting arrested. But it's most of these bad acts committed by white folks seem to be either in the suburban or rural or even urban centers where you know their income level, although you've had medium income people who have jobs who have gotten fired, it's white privilege run amok, and it's white privilege manifesting itself in the worst of ways. That white people believe, because this is their country and that they don't see us as human beings, that they take it upon themselves to not only call the police, but to weaponize the police and get us arrested, because they know that their whiteness and their phone call to the police, that they will be believed and it will endanger black people. And so you see it in these videos. And what I often wonder is, before the iPhone camera, you know, how much of this really occurred and how believable was it without the cameras? And on both counts, it happened a lot. And on both counts, black people were never believed. And so I think arresting white privilege and how it manifests itself helps. But there are too many incidents that we don't hear about, that we don't see. And again, it's that struggle we're going to go through as a country as we make our way towards 2043 and when we become a country of color.
It's just wild, crazy, and outlandish. And so we will continue highlighting when the crazy stuff happens. Yeah, it's just nuts. All right, folks.
You need to go for 3 on one show. You got 2 today. Find 3
I got a third one. Hell, I got 6.
You can do a whole spin-off show.
I got
but that's
6.
just the whole net show.
Right. It could be a whole show.
Right. That's right. That's right. Crazy ass white people. That's what it's going to be called. All right, folks, let's go to Haiti. Nearly 2 weeks after its appointment by the assassinated President Jovenel Moise, Ariel Henry is now officially Haiti's new prime minister. That took place today, while Henry, a public health expert, was selected for the position just 2 days before Moise was assassinated. The police chief of Haiti announced 3 additional arrests in Moise's assassination, making the total of 26 arrests, including 18 Colombians and 2 Haitian Americans. Folks, the funeral services for the murdered Haiti president will take place on tomorrow. Joining us right now to talk about what's happening in that country is my homegirl. She is the former NABJ Journalist of the Year, the Caribbean correspondent for the Miami Herald. And anytime something happens with Haiti on the Caribbean, she's the first person who I call, Jacqueline Charles. Jacqueline, what's up?
Hi, how are you?
Okay, so you're there in Haiti. What the hell is going on?
Well, yes, I'm actually in Cape Haitian, where President Jovenel Moise will be laid to rest on Friday. This is the second largest city. It's where the Republic was born. It's interesting because it's not always a city that had been associated with President Jovenel Moise. And I visited the area where his family has some land and where his father was buried last year. And, you know, people on the one hand are like very upset, you know, indignant about what happened to him, this assassination in the middle of the night in his private residence, in his bedroom in the hills above Port-au-Prince. But at the same time, they're also saying, well, you know what? He didn't really do anything for me. I wish he had fixed the road, because what's interesting is that they're preparing the road. The road is like rocky, it's gravel, it's not asphalted. And this is the road that dignitaries and members of the government are going to be coming to on Friday to pay their last respects. Overall, we still don't know who paid for this multi-million-dollar hit. I mean, at the Miami Herald, we basically have just been, you know, going after the theories. You know, the Haitian government says there's a company called Worldwide Lending. That's the money trail. They had meetings. That's where the assassination was plotted out. Well, we did our investigation and we found that, at least on paper, this guy, Walter Ventimilla, who's an Ecuadorian immigrant, he doesn't have the kind of money to pull this off. I mean, this guy's like a private equity lender, the person that you go to when you can't get a loan from the bank or you don't want the bank in your business. And he is saying that it was less than $200,000 that they gave financing to this South Florida-based Haitian doctor called Sano, who's currently in custody, who the Haitians are saying is an intellectual author of this crime. Again, there are over 20 people in custody, 18 of whom are Colombian mercenaries, alleged assassins. But who pulled the trigger? That we still do not know.
One of the things that I keep raising is just that Haiti is as if it is in this constant state of turmoil. Even before he was assassinated, folks were saying that he was illegally staying on as president. And you had massive protests. We had you on before about the gangs that are kidnapping people and folks talking about not being able to eat as well. And so from your reporting, I mean, are people in that country saying, can we get a year or two of just peace and the ability to be able to try to rebuild this country?
People are saying it, but do they believe that it's going to happen? No, they don't. I mean, yesterday, as you noted, Dr. Ariel Henry, who's a neurosurgeon, was installed as the prime minister. Jovenel Moïse picked him 2 days before, he was assassinated. And Ariel Henry announced a new government, but what we are seeing is that people are not even willing to give him a chance. What they're saying is, well, he was chosen by a president who was, illegal and he's de facto, and no, we're not going to go to the table. On the other hand, you have the United States and others in the international community saying we need to have elections and we need to have elections now. The reality is this is a country with multiple crises. There is armed gangs. There are more than 16,000 Haitians who have been forcefully displaced from their homes in poor working class neighborhoods of Port-au-Prince since June 1st. There are 4 regions of this country that are cut off, meaning you cannot get in your car and try to go to the southern region of this country. This is the same region that was in the strike zone of Hurricane Elsa just 2 weeks ago. So, how is anybody going to campaign in this atmosphere? The State Department has released these statements welcoming this unity government, but on the ground in Haiti, people are saying this is not a unity government. This is continuity. It's more of the same. So the crisis did not go away. Yes, Haitians are, upset that their president has been assassinated. They feel violated. They have gathered around that. But the problems that existed in Haiti prior to Jovenel Moïse's death, they still exist. And the fear is that once he's buried on Friday, that we're going to see a resurgence of the kidnapping, a resurgence of the armed gangs. Can they control the security situation and make this country a little bit more livable? That's what Haitians want. But I have to tell you right now, I don't see it yet.
Questions for my panel. I will start first with Scott Bolden. Scott, you have a question for Jacqueline Charles.
Hey, Jacqueline. It just seems to be, as Roland said, turmoil after turmoil. But this operation, I'm a former prosecutor, and while we don't have all the answers, it's hard to believe that the president of a country, regardless of its status or its circumstances and challenges, that the U.S. or other countries did not know about this, and that whether they did or didn't, they could, within Haiti and elsewhere, could keep this type of, if it's a ragtag operation, keep it quiet.
They didn't know. They didn't know. I mean, I think they didn't know. I think that what people, and even Haitians, fall into this, they expect that the U.S. should know everything that's going on in this country. And I have to tell you, I've been covering this country for like 20 years, and what I often see is that the international community is often behind the 8 ball on things. They're often catching up. They really did not know. I was awakened out of bed at 3:45 in the morning. My phone was ringing and somebody was saying to me, hey, this just happened, the president is dead. And one of the things that was used as a ploy was that this was a quote unquote DEA operation. And I've gone and I'm digging into this, and the DEA has said they had nothing to do with this. And as we found nothing to support that. And, you know, one of the things in this country is the minute you say the Americans, or you have people think that you have all of these contacts in the U.S., people respond in a certain way. I will tell you, as a journalist, you know, I'm Haitian, but I'm a Haitian American journalist. And there are times if I'm going through a police checkpoint, I'm just going to start speaking English so I don't have to stop and I don't have to deal with it. It's like, okay, go ahead, you can pass. I mean, that is the reality. You flash that U.S. card, you know, but there is a question. How does a president get killed in his home when he has security? I broke a story a few days ago.
And none of them got killed.
Exactly. None got killed, none got shot. My story 2 days ago challenged the police timeline in the government's timeline. This happened at 1 o'clock. I spoke to sources who basically confirmed that at least at 1:45 a.m. in the morning, President Jovenel Moise was still alive, and he was making phone calls saying, "Come, help me. My life is in danger. Come save me." And yet people who took off, cops who took off, could not get to his house. They could not save him.
Right. And his security force was nowhere around either, as I understand it. Not just the police.
We're still trying to figure that out. We've been asking the police how many security officials were on duty that night. Let's not even talk about how many were assigned, but how many were on duty and what happened to them. We're still trying to get the answer to that fundamental question. And if they were not there, who gave the orders for them to abandon the president? The president has there are multiple checkpoints to the president's house, and there are at least three checkpoints, and then there's 3 layers of security. There are presidential guards in the perimeter. There's a CAT team, which is like a SWAT team if the perimeter gets taken out, and then he's got personal bodyguards. My sources have told me that there were at least 7 that were working that day. Where were they? What happened? We still do not know the answer.
Yeah.
Question for Monique Presley for Jacqueline Charles.
Hi, Jacqueline. It's just the thing I've been thinking about as the news has been unfolding is how in any times that weren't as just overall globally heinous as this would be big news. This would be a recurring story, but it is not. What is it that we can do by way of media or messaging or delivery that would assist, or is there just not anything that the global community can do right now?
Well, it was a recurring story for maybe the first week. I mean, I have to tell you, I came in on the 7th and I was fielding a lot of calls, and there were a lot of journalists that were basically sort of going to their, Haiti shorthand, like trying to catch up, because the last time they checked in on Haiti was 11 years ago during the earthquake. And then what happens? Now we've got Cuba blowing up, right? So now the attentions are starting to shift, to elsewhere. And that is unfortunate that in terms of Haiti, the Miami Herald, we're the only one that consistently cover it. We think of it as a local beat for us. And then other people just sort of parachute in and they go out, no disrespect to them. But we need to keep an eye on this. You need to be able to sort of call out the players when they are basically trying to change the narrative. Because the reality is that, yes, a president is dead. It's a brazen assassination. It's the first in a century. The last time this happened was 1915. But the problems that existed in this country, they will exist tomorrow and they will exist next week. And there still doesn't appear to be a solution on the table to address them.
Robert Patillo, your question for Jacqueline Charles.
And thank you so much for your work, Ms. Charles. My mom is from Conscoff in Haiti. And one of the issues that I think often happens is a misunderstanding of the local dynamic of what's going on there. So given the power vacuum, which has currently been left with both the assassination of the president, the stepping down of the prime minister, the appointment of the person who was just appointed as prime minister 2 days before the assassination, who fills this power vacuum? Is it the G9 gangs and Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier? Is it the Colombians who have been working closely with on the island? Is it the U.S. who is sending investigators to work on the case? Who fills the power vacuum?
Well, increasingly people have been talking about a Haitian solution, but I have to tell you, honestly, my fellow Haitians have not articulated to me exactly what this Haitian solution is, because they've also showed their own inability to get together and to be on the same page. Today, you have a new prime minister, Ariel Henry, and I think that if Haitians want to move this country forward, they need to sort of well, I can't say what I want to say, but let's just say they need to figure out a way to come to the table and basically say, okay, look, you know what? Okay, You were appointed this, you were appointed that. I think you're de facto. I think you're this. But you know what? We have a country that we have to save. Let's put our personal interests aside. Let's try to cut up a cake that doesn't exist, where there's no crumbs even left. And let's figure out how do we move this country forward. What are the issues? You have the Biden administration that is pushing and saying elections, but they have not yet articulated how elections are going to happen. You have a police force that was not able to save a president. So how are they going to protect candidates that are out campaigning, and how are they going to protect voters to go to vote? Or do we not care? Do we just want to say we're staging a vote and there was a vote, democracy happened, let's move on? I mean, when you look at Haiti's history, you look at the problems and the turmoil, it always goes back to elections. So how do we break this cycle?
Well, piggybacking on that question of elections, we had the questions even with the 2016 election of President Jovenel Moise, where he was not sworn in for a year, and therefore his term should have expired in February of this year. The Biden administration supported him staying on until February of next year because this is a 5-year term. So who would be administering these elections? Would it be the U.S. stepping in kind of heavy-handedly and saying we're having elections, or are we going back to UN peacekeepers? We saw it happen after the earthquake where UN peacekeepers basically raped their way across the entire island for several years. Who would the Haitian people actually trust to administer an election at this point?
First of all, we need to be honest that the United States equates democracy with elections, and the Haitian people increasingly do not believe in this version of democracy that is being sold to them. That's number one. Number two, before you can get elections, you need to get buy-in, and you need to get the institutions that have been refusing to send members to sit on the electoral council to agree. That is the biggest challenges that's facing Ariel Henry today. How do you get the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, members of civil society, human rights group, all of these groups that the U.S. and others viewed as being credible, that said, hey, I'm not sending a representative because I don't believe that elections can be fair, transparent, and credible under this administration. How do you get them to buy in and to play ball? And then once you get that, then you have to look at the election apparatus so that people do feel that there is a fair shot. I mean, in order for elections to happen in Haiti, there's a lot of work to be done. So there's a lot of questions to be asked, and there's a lot of doubt on whether or not elections are going to even be able to take place in 2 weeks and 2 months.
Jacqueline, you talked about folks not being on the same page. When I think about how powerful these Cuban Americans are in terms of how they impact U.S. policy, I got to ask the question, do you have Haitian American consensus? Do you have Haitian American organizations or a major organization that is speaking truthfully that can actually?
Roland, we've got Gregory Meeks. You've got the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee out of New York that has been, one of the most vocal proponents in terms of what's happening in Haiti.
No. Here's what I mean. No. He's an elected official. I mean, do you, for our listeners and viewers, is there a major Haitian American organization that?
Yes, you have this, but what ends up happening is that.
Hold on. Before you go there, first of all, for the audience, what is that organization? What's their name?
Well, listen, you okay. I mean, I think. Let me just back up.
See, hold Jacqueline. No, here's why I'm doing this here. Here's why I'm doing it. Because a lot of people who are listening, watching right now have no clue whatsoever. So I just want to be able to give them, say, here are actual organizations that exist. You can go look them up if you want more information. And so that's why I'm asking. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just off the top of my head, I'm just thinking in terms of Miami. I think of somebody like a Marilyn Bastien, who is, she was like, she changed her name from FAMN, but they've been proponents in terms of the immigration TPS issue, but she's been speaking out about this issue. I mean, here's the deal. Haitian American organizations this year were able to get the Biden administration to not just give temporary protected status, which is immigration status, to allow Haitians to live and work legally in the United States temporarily, which really is a recognition that your country is not safe for you to return. But they got them to do a redesignation to allow new people to come into the pool. The reality, though, is that you've had Haitian organizations that have basically been talking to the administration, not just the Biden administration. They did it under Obama. They did it under Trump, and basically saying, listen, this country is in trouble. This country is on fire. There's chaos. but it doesn't get listened to. You know, yes, the Cuban American lobby is a very powerful lobby. We had wet foot, dry foot. Let's go back to that, where the U.S. policy was that if you were Cuban American and you ended up in the United States and you touched ground, you got to stay, and in 1 year or 1 day, you basically got a green card. But if you were Haitian and you ended up touching ground, it did not matter. You got turned back and sent back to Haiti. You know, I think that right there says to you in terms of the U.S. policy and the difference between Haitian refugees and Cuban refugees. Yes, the Haitian American, community is not always speaking with, is always speaking with one voice. But I think that's just a cop out that people continue to use it as an excuse to say, oh, you guys just need to get together and you just need to do this, because you do have groups that do get together. They write letters. I have a letter that is signed by 146 organizations, and we've had powerful supporters like the Catholic Church. You've had members of Congress that have been speaking out, but the reality is that it's just been ignored. Haiti is always react. It's always been a place where people react when there's a crisis, and you hear talk of Haiti fatigue that is happening, whether it's in the international community or whether it's in the U.S. administration. And I think that the reality is that Haiti is 2 hours away from the United States, and Haiti policy should not be based on how many Haitians end up in the Florida Straits on the shores of Miami, Florida. It should be about, what do you do and what kind of policies can the United States and others in the international community promote to allow Haitians to want to remain in their country and to fight to remain in their country.
Jacqueline Charles, Caribbean correspondent for the Miami Herald. See, that's why I called you. We've been trying to get you on, but you've been working. So everybody understand, y'all, don't act like we've been trying to get Jacqueline literally since the day after the Haitian president was assassinated, but she has been working like crazy there on the ground. And so we certainly appreciate you breaking down for us. Hit me up. Let me know what's going on. So if some stuff changes, we'll have you back on to break this thing down for our viewers and listeners.
Thank you. And listen, send me a WhatsApp because I've been in a technology meltdown. My iPhone melted the day that I got here.
Lord have mercy. All right, I'll hit you on WhatsApp. Same number or just on WhatsApp?
Same number.
I got you.
I'm more than happy to help you out.
All right, Jacqueline, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. So,
Okay,
folks, y'all be sure to go to MiamiHerald.com and just type in her name if you want to see her reporting on what's happening in Haiti. It's really important, which is also why you really need to support this show. Trust me, you're not going to get that deep dive of what's happening in Haiti on other shows out there, including on a lot of this black-targeted media, not black-owned, black-targeted. So please support us in what we do here. You can support us via our Bring the Funk fan club. Let me give a shout out to Sean Sanders as well as Brian Hall for contributing during the show. Thank you so very much. Anybody, if you give during the show, you're going to get a shout out from me. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com or Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We're asking $50 from each one of our fans. If 20,000 of our fans give an average of $50 each, folks, that's $1 million, which really funds what we're trying to do here with some amazing things. And so I'm about to give you, Henry, go to that shot. This is a shot of our control room. We're almost there building it out. That's what it looks like right now, folks. That's our new Roland Martin Unfiltered control room. You see, yes, much larger, all kind of different stuff we're adding in there. And so, yeah, it's a lot of things that we are adding into the mix. I cannot wait till y'all see the whole studio. Here is that wide shot available of the set. So y'all can just if you can, to take that shot too. So I'm just gonna okay, it's not? All right, cool. We'll show y'all another day. So can't wait to show it to y'all. All right, let's talk about what happened on Capitol Hill today. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, by the way, who is almost a year since we've been asking for her to come on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Hey, Pelosi, your staff, y'all, it don't take a year for you to find 10 minutes to come on the show. Not when Schumer's done it 5 times in a year, okay? So Nancy Pelosi has rejected Kevin McCarthy's appointments of 2 Republicans to the special committee to investigate what happened on January 6th. He says she's broken the House. How dare she? Well, Liz Cheney, Republican, who used to be in the Republican leadership until they booted her out, well, let's just say she was like, Kevin McCarthy, you're trash. Listen to this.
I want to take a minute to talk about the appointments to the January 6th Select Committee. The rhetoric that we have heard from the minority leader is disingenuous. The attack on this building on January 6th was the worst attack on this Capitol since 1814. It was an attack on our Constitution. We supported what would have been the very best option, which was a bipartisan independent commission. The minority leader opposed that. He lobbied against it in the Senate, and the Senate blocked it. The American people deserve to know what happened. People who did this must be held accountable. There must be an investigation that is nonpartisan, that is sober, that is serious, that gets to the facts wherever they may lead. And at every opportunity, the minority leader has attempted to prevent the American people from understanding what happened, to block this investigation. Today, the Speaker objected to 2 Republican members. She accepted 3 others. She objected to 2, one of whom may well be a material witness to events that led to that day, that led to January 6th. The other, who disqualified himself by his comments in particular over the last 24 hours, demonstrating that he is not taking this seriously. He is not dealing with the facts of this investigation, but rather viewed it as a political platform. This investigation must go forward. The idea that anybody would be playing politics with an attack on the United States Capitol is despicable and is disgraceful. And I am absolutely dedicated and committed to making sure that this investigation holds those accountable who did this and ensures that it never happens again. And
she laid it out, Robert. You have McCarthy, she broke the house. Stop it. You appoint 2 people to the committee who, if you appoint Jim Jordan to anything, you're trying to blow it up.
Well, let's look at what Jim Jordan's role has been in government in the last 4 or 5 years, and even before he got to Congress. He covered up the abuse of wrestlers when he was a coach in Ohio. He covered up from President Trump during the first impeachment. He covered up for President Trump during the second impeachment. So the reason you put him on a committee isn't to find the truth, it's to obfuscate and it's to try to make a mockery of the committee. They want to do whataboutism. They want to make it about every single thing except for the fact that these crazy Republicans tried to overturn the United States government, overturn an election, and effectively end our democracy. And people think that's hyperbolic when you say that. But let's look at what would have happened if they had succeeded. What was the conscious object of what these people were trying to do? Their attempt was to disrupt a congressional proceeding, to stop the counting of electoral votes and the certification of the election, and prevent Joe Biden from taking office. That is treason. That is literally the definition of treason. So when they try to say these were just tourists, these were people walking around, it was just a normal event. Well, let's look in history. The Beerhau Putsch in Germany in 1933. Hitler attempted the exact same thing. They put him in jail, but it led to the rise of Nazism about 5 years later. Mussolini in Italy. They literally just walked into they stormed the legislature, stormed the prime minister's residence, and they just put Mussolini in charge of the country. That's what happens when people storm capitals like this. 1799 in France, Le coup d'état de 18 premiers au Château de Saint-Cloud in 1799. Napoleon locked the entirety of the legislature inside of a building and then put his brother in charge. They dissolved the First French Republic and established the directory, dissolved the consulate, making him the directory, making him the first consulate. He then had a coup against Abbé de Saïs, making him the emperor of France. It was literally a coup inside of a coup. So anytime we've seen this happen in history, it has never turned out well. So the idea of trying to torpedo this and try to have subterfuge means that they do not want to have a real hearing.
You took great delight in Robert's history lesson.
I couldn't repeat some of them words. You sounded good, brother, and there was depth and substance. You lost me with that French shit. But you sounded good.
At the point that he said the Le Coup d'etat, I said, oh,
that's right, the Le
he's
Coup
on one today. I'm so glad I know all these smart people. My God. He went trilingual on us. Go ahead, Robert.
Go ahead.
We done with this topic. I dare somebody else to say something.
Too. Say it again.
Well, I think the entire point. The entire point is. The entire point is that when you have people who are out of power launching their crazy people to disrupt elections, it never turns out well. Because what happened after 1799, you had about 20 years of war with Napoleon as the Emperor of France. What happened after Mussolini? What happened after Hitler? So we can either solve this the diplomatic and the investigatorial way. We can arrest these people, lock them up for some time, or we can pretend it never happened. And then when Trump loses again in 2024, y'all gonna be right at my house, loading up magazines and stuff, because these folks gonna get even crazier the next time.
Uh-oh, here we go. We'll have an 11 millimeter by then, won't we?
No, look, Scott, we moved on from that. We're at 6'5" Creedmoor now. Just built it this weekend. I'll show it to you one day.
All right now. But you know, Roland, let me say this. Jim Jordan may be a material witness to this hearing, and I got to tell you.
That's right, Scott.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, he's a material witness, so he can't serve on the committee.
Damn, Monique, you sound like Scott's hype man. It's like we're at a rap concert. Say it! Say it! Say it! Scott, go ahead.
He's a material witness, so he can't serve. But I got to tell you, if the committee does its work, and by the way, you don't want him on the committee to be disruptive and undermining the goals and objectives of this very important committee. Let's not forget why we had this committee, because you couldn't have a bipartisan commission because the Republicans didn't want it. But I got to tell you, the real challenge here for Pelosi and others is uncovering what really happened and what Republican elected officials that they work with, that they serve with, were part of this, whether they knew it or didn't know it, whether they were enablers, empowers, whether they were fist-raising and enabled these people, whether it was a conspiracy, public, private, or hidden. And that's really is what's going to come out of this committee work if they do their work. You cannot have Republicans who are material witnesses or those who do not want the truth to come out because they want to preserve power, they want Trump to reign, and they want to continue to feed this negative, unpatriotic narrative to their constituents in the name of patriotism, if you will. And so that denial has no place on this committee. And so it's not
you
so
know
much
what
who
else
gets
has
on
no
the
place?
committee. You know what it is? It's how this work plays out and how cooperative they can work together in getting to the truth. That's going to be an ongoing challenge for Pelosi and the chair of this commission.
I agree with my Haitian French brother. I agree with my distinguished legal colleague. There is also another reason why obviously Speaker Pelosi did not want him on here. Nobody wants all that non-blazer wearing, sweaty shirt having, rolled up sleeves with all that hollering. Nobody's trying, not with this important committee. Do that when your people put you on there to obfuscate and make a fool out of yourself and act like a low moron. Don't come with all that here. We don't need to see you sweating like that. We're not trying to be yelled at like that. And then you have no decorum. You don't wear a blazer. I mean, these are the things that matter so that we can have some good TV out of this, even if they can't save anything with the January 6th Inquisition. So obviously, there were multiple reasons, Scott's reasons, Robert's reasons, and mine, the enlightened ones, about why he couldn't be on. It wasn't his turn.
And look,
did she say that?
Look, there's an easy way to take care of this, quite frankly. If Nancy Pelosi just says that all your Republicans have to be drug tested before the hearing, they'll withdraw their own name.
You guys are fine.
They be coming up zeros. They be coming up
Couldn't
zeros.
get nobody on there.
Yep.
Oh gosh.
I bet you marijuana would be legal federally real quick right then.
Oh no, they're going straight to crack. Jim Jordan's on a whole nother level.
We can't help with everything.
Yeah, that boy be intense.
Well,
No,
you're going to have
has large pores. He has large pores.
Oh, stop it. But you're right about one thing. The gravitas for this commission, the seriousness of purpose is so important. And when you get Jim Jordan, you get a clown show. And that's what the Republicans like to see. It will undermine the seriousness. And that may not be the only reason, but that's also a very important reason, because the American public has to take this seriously. These hearings are going to be televised, and we're going to get to the truth, and it's going to lead right to the Republicans and undermine what they say is why they want to move on. We're going to get to the ugliness of American and Republican conspiracies. That's going to come, because nothing like this happens without the ugliness of conspiracy and the worst part of what they view as protecting democracy, and how these people really believe they were storming, for lack of a better word, they were storming the Bastille, Robert, if you will. And they deeply believed that. And they had purposeness too. That's not an accident. They were fed that, and they were trained in that regard, and they came with weapons and prepared to alter. And by the way, to alter the outcome of the proceeding. And by the way, it's against federal law too, by the way, not just against the Constitution. Yes. Trying to interrupt that proceeding to stop someone or stop the business of Congress is a federal offense. Let's not forget that, whether they were charged or not.
Just think about how gullible you have to be as a human being to think that the president who just lost his first election by 3 million votes and just let 500,000 people die on his watch, and then lost by 7 million votes, you can't get it through your head, the idea that he lost, and you think that it's actually been stolen from him. These people deep down legitimately believed that their whole election had been stolen from them, and that this is the only thing they could do to save their nation, despite 500,000 people being in the ground. This is a whole new type of politics we're dealing with, and people who are we'll say unreasonable at best.
It's a cult. It's a political cult, right? And these people travel around the world to hear Trump. Trump says the same thing over and over again. And I got to tell you, it is a cult-like following where
This is the Guyana tragedy. This is Jim Jones.
Exactly. They just drink the Kool-Aid. But the other thing that Roland says is that you can't talk logic or intellectual capacity here. These are just, you tell me what, they feed them this line, and then that's it. Facts don't matter. Law doesn't matter. That's what Trump told me. That's what Jim Jordan told me, and I'm going with it blindly. And it's the more ignorance. It's not dumb. It's just the ignorance of those parts of America, and the suffering that they're in. Remember, many of them voted for Obama, but now it's gotten worse in the sense that their life themselves, whether it's economically, socially, racially, what have you, is in such despair because their life doesn't match up with the white privilege and the white privilege messaging that the Republicans have fed them. And so they're frustrated economically and financially, and then they're left with the hold on to anything. QAnon, the Republican Party, McCarthy, Trump, all of these things that make them feel better about their white privilege and better about their whiteness, even to the detriment of our democracy, our Constitution, and what we know is righteous and true, and really represents the worst of America, even though what they're being fed in the directive, it talks about patriotism, when it's really just politics and power and racism.
Well, Scott, you reminded me. I met a guy this weekend up in Dalton, Georgia. His name was Henry. He was a self-described toothless redneck. He came over, shook my hand, and wanted to introduce himself as a toothless redneck. That's what he said. He had one bad eye, and so I was explaining to him that the new infrastructure bill.
You had one bad eye.
Yeah, look, he has one bad eye. So I was explaining to him that the new infrastructure bill included dental and vision care being added in on the federal level to Medicare. So Democrats are trying to help him to have teeth and be able to see. He said that this was cultural Marxism and that this is the liberals trying to take over America. So if you have people...
Don't give me nothing. Don't give me nothing.
They will put their political party above being able to chew and see. That means you can't negotiate with them anymore. That means we're too far. We've gone too far now, and we're going to have to find ways to have a political apparatus around those folks.
Yeah, y'all have gone too damn far with this. Y'all have gone too damn far with this meaningless ass conversation. So you absolutely right. Y'all know what time it is.
No charcoal grills are allowed.
I'm white. I got you, Carl.
Illegally
legally selling water without a permit?
On my property.
Whoa! Hey! Give us your ID.
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
All right, so very rarely will we have a white person checking a white person in our crazy ass white people segment. But I think that this airline worker clearly embodies why this segment was created. This video was shared last night. It is probably one of the best 1 minute moments you will ever have in your life. Y'all ready for this here? Check this out.
Second of all, you called my employee a bitch. Completely uncalled for, inappropriate, you're not going to travel. We don't tolerate that crap with us at all. So you can find another courier to fly. I'd suggest Spirit. Nope. If you acted appropriate and weren't disrespectful, then I would let you travel. But unfortunately, you called my employee a bitch. Did you call my employee a bitch? You didn't. I was sleeping there. No, I did not. You didn't. So the other people have heard you say it as well. So don't count. Yeah, she also had 2 children. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, don't lie because you already did that once when you took the mask off and put a new one of yours on again.
I was getting this out of my bag. Yes, I was.
You were putting the same mask on. You didn't have a mask on when you went down. Unfortunately, no. If you don't follow our policy, it's a period end of discussion. You don't want to follow a federal mask mandate, and then on top of that, calling a vulgar name to my employee, it's not going to happen.
My man said, don't lie. You've already done that once.
Right.
And
Did you call her a bitch?
And then it was like,
did you call her a bitch?
But you called her a bitch.
On top of all
And one was
that.
like, I did. I have children. And she has 2 children. But when my man said, find another airline, I suggest you try Spirit.
They let anybody on. Anybody can fly. They fight over there.
My man said, I suggest your ass try Spirit.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Go there. Go
He just wanted to promote another airline. Because he didn't want to fly.
Yep.
Look,
I don't want
slander
you not
Spirit
to get
here.
there.
Do
You
y'all
just need to go.
understand?
Go to Spirit. Yeah.
And y'all, my man said, and he kept an even ass tone. I suggest you take your punk ass to Spirit.
No, that was the read of all reads. That was the, and I will call the marshals, but I'm gonna tell you about yourself before I call the marshals. And you don't. It's not that I don't want you to go. Just go on an airline that suits your particular
crazy
proclivities and predilections. You want to fight. So
Listen,
go where they fight.
he was matter of fact about it. He wasn't emotional. He was just matter of fact about it. And he was just reading her in a very even tone.
I just don't understand why we got to stand.
And she took that. I hate it because I guess it's not just white women. I just don't happen to know any black women who do it. She took that, hi, I didn't mean, it
was a misunderstanding.
In the tears, that I have children. And he's like, did you call her a bitch?
She got children too. You called
she
her
has children.
Look, I just don't understand why we got to slander Spirit in this. What does Spirit do to these people? Look, I fly Spirit all the time.
We know exactly. Oh hell no!
We are not slandering Spirit.
But hold up. But hold up. As I watched that video, it just reminded me of this one.
They fight over there. They fight.
Today, and the climate that we live in today's society,
I was sorry.
I understand that, but it's above me now.
I need a room tonight.
Well, there's the Best Western next door.
No, please, let me hear. My daughter's here.
I'm sorry, but I mean, I was on the phone when you said it.
I said, I'm sorry. Please, I've had a horrible day
And I had a horrible time when hearing that.
He won't let me in.
It's above me. She called me a
Sir, my grandma just died.
I understand that, but It's above me.
Let me, please let me.
It's above me. Sorry.
I got my
The
credit
best
card.
restaurant is next door.
Sir, the rest of our family
I
is
understand
here.
that, but it's above me.
Please. I
She
apologize.
said what she
sir.
said.
I understand that.
I understand.
She's very...
It was the same tone. No.
It's above me.
It's no.
It's above me.
You called her a bitch.
It's above me.
No, you. Yes, and so no, actually, you wouldn't put your mask on, and so you don't want to follow airline policy. No, you're not getting on this plane, and I suggest you find another airline. I suggest you fly Spirit.
Spirit.
Spirit, I ain't got no problem with y'all. Spirit has never done me wrong. I would like Spirit to give me some free miles and whatnot also. So Spirit, if y'all need like a spokesperson, I'm here for you. Now Frontier, that's ghetto. But Spirit is fine. I don't know why y'all keep talking about Spirit.
I just had, to all of the airline personnel, that's exactly how you respond. No, you're not getting on this plane. Nope, you called her a bitch. No, see, you tried that lie once. Now you try, my man, I don't even know what airline he worked for. I don't know my man's name.
I know he didn't work for Spirit.
Y'all need to give that man a raise for what he just did in dealing with her ignorant ass. See, all these people, they running around here, they don't want to put masks on, they ain't trying to take a vaccine. I'm telling you, the only way that video could have been better if they shot it right, which was horizontal, but they shot it vertical. So just do me a favor, please always shoot videos horizontal, so therefore it fills the whole screen. So we now have the black bars on each side. See, you got the black bars on each side when you shoot vertical. Go horizontal versus vertical. So I just had to play that one. That was absolutely fantastic. All right, folks. We lost a couple of great brothers. Sam Bell-Navis, a motorsports pioneer and leader in NASCAR diversity efforts, passed away at the age of 81. Bell-Navis was a trailblazer as a black general manager and team owner in NASCAR. He introduced the National Guard as a sponsor of his team, Bell Kart Racing. His hard work and efforts led to NASCAR's Drive for Diversity program and the Bell-Navis Collective, NASCAR's Black Employee Resource Group, named in his honor. On Sunday, NASCAR held a moment of silence at a race in New Hampshire to recognize Bell-Navis' impact on the sport. Sam Bell-Navis passed away at the age of, 81. Then, of course, we got, the sad news today. The sad news that this is, go ahead and show them in memoriam, please, of Sam Bell-Navis. Again, just a major figure at the age of 81. Then we got the sad news today. Former NBA player and the first male Episcopal supervisor, Dr. Stan McKenzie, has passed away. Many of you also know his wife, Bishop Vashti McKenzie, the first woman bishop in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. She announced her husband's death earlier today. McKenzie was drafted in 1966 by the Baltimore Bullets in 1967 and culminated with, he also played for the Houston Rockets in 1974. He studied international law at the University of Perugia in Italy. And of course, his varied collection of awards includes the Jesse Owens Lifetime Achievement Award from our fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Stan McKenzie passed away at the age of 76. It was just last week that Bishop McKenzie and Dr. McKenzie retired from their work with the AME. And so Stan had been ill for the past couple of months, and so it was a surprise and shock to all. So certainly our prayers go out to Bishop Vashti McKenzie as well as the AME family on the loss of Dr. Stanley McKenzie, a great alpha man. Folks, that is it for us. We certainly appreciate all of you being with us. Robert, Monique, and Scott, thank you very much for being on today's panel, folks. If y'all want to support what we do, It's some great things that we do here at Roland Martin Unfiltered with the coverage that we do. Again, being at today's news conference today, Congressional Black Caucus. Tomorrow we're going to be covering the action taking place here on Capitol Hill, protesting for voting rights. And don't forget, folks, we're going to be in Texas beginning on Tuesday. And in fact, we're also going to be at Howard University on Tuesday for a short film dealing with COVID. And we're going to actually be, I'm going to be on the panel, I'm going to be streaming that as well. And so this is the kind of stuff that we're doing here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Henry, you go to that wider shot. And so I just want to show y'all, so we're putting together something amazing here. We're building out the studio. I can't wait to show. Now stop right there. I don't want you to show no more. I don't want to show no more. When y'all, trust me, when y'all, this ain't even, y'all saw the control room. You chose the control room. You can take that shot. You see this here. Y'all, this ain't even 25% of what this space is going to look like and what we are about to do. Y'all, I'm telling y'all, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to let y'all know what we have got planned. We've got some amazing stuff that we got planned. I'm telling you, it's gonna blow y'all away. It's gonna blow you away, but your support is critical. You are our fans. Y'all have been helping us, supporting us, standing with us, and we appreciate all of that. And so we want y'all to support us by joining our Bring the Funk fan club, where every dollar you give goes to support this show and what we do. Y'all see on our set, these are the pieces, art pieces that were done by artist Leroy Campbell. Leroy's in Mexico right now celebrating his 65th birthday. But this is just the beginning. That's all I'm gonna say. So please support our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing at least $50 each. Some people have given more, some people have given less. We appreciate every single dollar. You can join our Bring the Funk fan club via Cash App, which is $RM Unfiltered, PayPal.me/R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com is RM Unfiltered, Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. And some of y'all are probably saying, man, hold up, he get to walk around, all that sort of stuff. And so absolutely. And so as I told y'all, Henry, did we change the camera? Did we change it? Go ahead. So we're in the, go ahead and turn around. So this is the control. We gave y'all the shot earlier, the control room. We got some great stuff. I'm telling y'all, it's gonna blow y'all away. The great stuff we got planned. And so support us in what you can. If you give on YouTube, remember, we only get 55 cents on every dollar. So if you give us the direct, we get all the money. And so that's it for us. Robert, Scott, Monique, thanks a bunch. I'm going to shut us down. We're in the control room. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered.